Hi, I'm Rick Anthony, and welcome to the Someone You Should Know podcast, the podcast that focuses on musicians, authors, and interesting people. We like to say we're making a difference one artist at a time. So sit back, have a cold one, and get ready to meet someone you should know. Today's podcast guest is an interesting lady who is an actor, an author, a sports performance coach, and since the beginning, her more than 20 books have been used as a reference by fitness experts and coaches to create countless training programs, and her books are being hailed as the most useful on the market. Wow. Well, we're going to go beyond the books because this lady is joining us to talk about a movie that's about bullying, and it's coming up sometime in the near future. Her name is Karen Goeller. Karen, how are you, dear?
I'm good. How are you?
Karen, let's talk about your humble beginnings. What started you on the path to gymnastics?
Well, I was a ballet dancer and acrobat before that. And then in grammar school, a couple of my classmates did gymnastics, and they could do a few more skills than me at the time. So I asked them where they went. And then my father brought me and my best friend at the time, she's actually still a friend, to the YMCA, and we watched a couple of a class. And then I insisted that my parents sign me up for classes there because I wanted to do uneven bars. And ever since, I've been involved in the sport. That was in the 70s. Back in the
70s, during the time of maybe Olga Corbett or Nadia Comaneci during that time frame?
Both.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Because
76.
I know a lot of individuals who got into that sport because of watching it on ABC Sports or watching it during the Olympics and such. So, yes, I totally understand that. Now, let's talk about your involvement in gymnastics from being a gymnast to a coach to an author. Can you take us through that progress? Okay.
Sure. I've actually been coaching since I'm 12 years old.
Overachiever, folks, overachiever.
A little bit. I had 2 jobs at 12. I don't know why my parents let me do that, but I did. So anyway, it was a leadership program in the YMCA back then. And there were a handful of us that were child coaches. We worked with an adult coach for 6 months. At the end of the 6 months, they would evaluate us and decide whether they would accept us as coaches or whether we wouldn't be accepted as coaches. And at the end of the program, they did give me classes to teach. So I've been a paid coach since 1978.
Wow. That's incredible.
I went down to get my own working papers in Brooklyn. Kids don't normally do that. They don't even know, any of that stuff, but no, I actually did.
As far as your gymnastics career goes, places you've competed, how you did and such, any hopes of making the Olympic team?
Well, that's what I wanted to do, but from a YMCA, that was not going to happen.
Right.
The reason I've been coaching for so long is because my knees were really bad. I had tendonitis, Osgood Schlatters in my knee. And back then, kids didn't really go to physical therapy. It just wasn't a thing. So the doctor said, quit. So my way of staying in the sport was through coaching.
Awesome. Very good. Very good.
But yeah, I used to go to the American Cup in Madison Square Garden with my father and wish that I could be one of those gymnasts.
Mm-hmm. In your career, have you had a chance to meet some of the famous gymnasts?
Well, I worked for the Olympic coach, Bella Caroli.
Okay, very good. Yeah, he was the one who taught Nadia.
Yeah, I met Nadia. I've worked with many Olympians. I worked at IGC camp as well, and he always had Olympians on staff as well. So I worked for him 86 or 87 to 89 to 96. So I met Kim Zmeskal and Betty Okino and that group of Olympians.
Awesome. Very good. Very good.
I also met Geza Pozar. He was actually the choreographer that a lot of people don't know about, but he was the brilliant mind behind those beautiful floor routines.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, you said you wanted to do the sport to do the uneven bars, which is a very difficult, which has actually been modified a little bit now, hasn't it?
Yes, quite a bit. The bars are further apart and they're higher. Mm-hmm. Back when I did gymnastics, I had a few teammates whose butts would almost hit the floor when they did a mount onto the bars, and whose feet almost hit the floor when they were on the high bar. And then eventually with college gymnasts, since many of them are grown women, they actually had to raise the bar. So they actually redesigned those bars to make them wider and higher.
Okay, understand. Of all the disciplines in the gymnastics realm, what is still your favorite today, and why?
I still love bars. It's not like anything else. Just swinging on the bars. It's fun. It's different. It's unique. When I was a kid, my favorite animal was a monkey because they were always swinging through the
Hmm.
forest and, whatever I saw. Um, but I'm also highly efficient as a coach on beam. I've had a lot of state, regional, and national champions on beam.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now,
Yeah.
how and when did you become an author?
In 2000,
Hmm.
I was in an accident and I couldn't coach anymore. I was actually disabled. And then a YMCA called me to do some consulting work with them and basically coach their coaches. So I had to come up with a plan, like a written plan for them to work with. And I hand drew stick figures and then I put it into my computer and I did those stick figures in MS Word. And they worked so well with it, I figured I might as well publish it. And that was my first gymnastics book.
Wow, and your books right now. You've got more than 20 books, and they are being touted as the most useful on the market. That's got to
Yeah.
be a nice little accolade. What's your thought about that comment?
That was incredible. That was for back in 2000 or 2001. That was for that first book. And that was just the most incredible thing. Before my books, the only other gymnastics book here in the US was Biomechanics by Dr. Jerry George. And we all, loved that book. If you were a good coach, you read that book. Um, it was just brilliant. And after that, there were no other books. And then I wrote a series of 6 drills and conditioning books that people were buying. And then YouTube came into existence and people started just watching videos of, drills and conditioning instead of buying my books. So,
Very good. Now, I know there's a lot of parents out there that have young boys, young girls that would be interested in gymnastics. What would you say would be the very first thing they need to do as a parent who wants to enroll their kids in gymnastics?
they need to visit at least 3 gyms because every gym is unique. They have a unique atmosphere, unique set of coaches, unique set of rules. And some are more clean than others, some are bigger than others. So they really need to think about. I know it's hard when a child is 5 or 7 years old or even 3, but they kind of need to think about what the ultimate goal is. And if they can match the ultimate goal to the gym, then they end up staying there a lifetime. If the ultimate goal ends up being college gymnastics and they're in a little recreational gym that has never produced a high level gymnast, then eventually they'll have to switch gyms.
All right, very
So
good.
it really depends. If they're in it for fun, then any gym will do. If they're in it for high level gymnastics, then that's where they need to be, a
Awesome.
gym that has done that.
Great advice. Great advice. I'll make sure that that gets mentioned uh, to all the parents of individuals, especially those young girls who saw the most recent Olympics and said, "Oh, that's what I want to do, Daddy. That's what I want to do." Yeah. Now we're going to switch gears a little bit. I understand you're a cancer survivor. Can you take us through
Yeah.
that? And
I was, I think, 25. It was 1991. And I had a malignant melanoma. It was actually a mole. And then it started to get itchy and gray looking around the edges. And during the summer, I would wear shorts all the time. And my father would yell at me to get it checked. And I kind of just blew him off. And then when I did finally get it checked and they biopsied it, they said, this is malignant melanoma. You've got to, have major surgery. Within 8 days, I had the surgery, but they were telling me I'd be bedridden for the rest of my life
oh dear Lord.
yeah, because it was in my thigh and they had to take the lymph nodes out along with it. And once the lymph nodes are damaged or removed, there's nothing to filter that limb. So all of that fluid stays in the limb. So the being bedridden comes from the fact that you have to elevate the limb that doesn't have the lymph nodes anymore or wear compression. So that first year was incredibly difficult. And even to this day, I wear compression stockings, or if I'm at home watching TV, I sit with my legs up.
Very good. Well, you're a cancer survivor now. What advice would
Yep.
you, and myself, I am a cancer survivor too. What advice would you like cancer patients to know, though, as far as for anyone who still has cancer or is going through the chemo and,
Keep living. You
okay.
have to keep living. You have to keep reminding yourself that you'll get through it. You have to keep reminding yourself that it'll get a little bit better every day. And you actually have to take care of your health. I mean, there are some people that are drinking like soda and eating all sorts of weird things that they shouldn't be eating. And that's not helping their body heal in any way. So they really should talk to a nutritionist that specializes in that. Some of these hospitals, I think, have programs now compared to years ago, and really do their part as far as eating right, sleeping right, and hydrating right, and whatever supplements, they're supposed to be taking, because it will make a huge difference. The stuff you do at home will help the doctor do their job.
Wonderful. Thanks for that advice. We're going to switch
You're
gears
welcome.
again. We're going to talk about Missy's voice.
Okay.
Missy's voice is about bullying. Can you tell us what
Yeah.
inspired you to write Missy's voice and focus on the topic of bullying?
Sure. It's kind of funny because one day I was listening to the radio and somebody on the radio said something that triggered a childhood memory. And I said to myself, well, that would be a cute short film. And then I wrote it as a short film script originally. And then I said to myself, well, I've published a bunch of books. I could kick out a book much faster than produce a film. So I did that. I wrote the book. The book goes until she's in about eighth grade. But then a few producers said, well, this is a really good story. You need to make this into a feature-length film. So I did that. And the feature-length film goes all the way up until she's about 28 years old. And you see her as a grown-up and very successful and confident.
Wonderful. Very good. We're going to talk
Yeah.
more about Missy's voice in just a second, but first I want to say thank you so much for tuning into the Someone You Should Know podcast. Thanks to our good friends at Buzzsprout. They're the ones that share us to all the streaming platforms. And we're very blessed to reach over 2,750 cities in 102 countries around the world. I want to salute a couple of ones that of note. Covington, Kentucky, Waterloo, Illinois, the city of Westminster in the United Kingdom, and Kempton Park, South Africa. That's a new one. On the Someone You Should Know podcast, heard wherever quality streaming audio is available. We are speaking to actor, author, performance coach, Karen Goeller. Karen, let's get back to Missy's voice there. You've already won multiple awards for just the script.
Yes.
What sets this one different compared to any of the other movies that are tracking that same theme?
Well, a lot of the other ones they're kind of glamorizing bullying. In my story, it really sends the message that bullying is not okay, that good behavior is rewarded, bullies are not rewarded. Be kind. This story also teaches a lot of life lessons. A lot of these other stories are not teaching any life lessons. But this one teaches kids or viewers that hard work pays off. Find time for your family. Find time for your passion. Stick to your passion. Follow your dream. Be kind. I mean, it really teaches a lot of life lessons. And the reason it's so unique, besides that, is that the families are all tied together, but they don't find out about that until they're older.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really an interesting story besides the bullying aspect.
Right. All right. Very good. Now, the project is female-driven, female lead, female writer. How does that perspective influence the narrative?
I didn't plan for it to be so female driven, but it's just the way it worked out. There are over 40 roles in this film, and the majority of them are female. That's besides all the background roles that we'll need. But, it was loosely based on my experience. I happen to be a female. The bullies are females in grammar school and high school. And then she has a special relationship with her aunt, who's also female. So I guess it kind of is female driven.
It's cool. Your film addresses numerous life lessons, like you said earlier, from mental health to friendships, kindness. Can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, you do see throughout the film the bullying. It's not really physical bullying. You don't see her get totally beat up or anything like that, but it's the type of bullying where it's constant torment. And there is a point where she does consider suicide. Evidently, she doesn't do it because you do see her as a grown-up, but there is a point where she does consider it. So that is addressed in the book and in the film. But and that's a talking point for parents or teachers with their kids, that that's not the answer. I've actually heard so many stories of kids that have committed suicide or died by suicide, really, as a result of bullying. I've spoken to a few parents. I trained the cousin of one child, so it's really, really a sad thing that keeps happening over and over again, and it really needs to be stopped. And I think this film can actually help reduce bullying in this world.
How do you feel about, well, let's take this separate here as far as that goes. The subject of kids getting bullied to a point where they come to school with a gun.
Oh, that's extreme. That's so sad. Um, that's just awful because the adults that are around them, sometimes it is hard to notice. It really is because some of these bullies are really stealth. Um, but by the time it gets to that point, you would hope that an adult would have noticed that there's some issue with this child, that they're hurting so badly. It seems that there are calls for help before it gets to that point, and a lot of people are not aware of that or not paying attention to that.
Right, right. You mentioned the fact that the character was potentially driven to suicide. It's always a good time to mention the suicide prevention hotline that's available 24 hours a day. That number is 988. 988. And me being a veteran here, I learned just last year that members of the military no longer have to go to a military base or a local VA facility. Just go to your local hospital for treatment. It'll all get figured out in the wash as far as that goes. Simply, the best way to start is simply call 988. And that should be something on your phone or near your phone for all your family members to know in case they ever get to that point. 988 is the suicide prevention hotline. You've built a strong team, and what is the status of the movie itself? Is it in pre-production? Where are we at?
It's kind of in an interesting point because I thought I had funding for the film. So I did set up this team around me that is ready to work. That particular person that said that I had funding fell through. So I am still looking for equity investors. And this team, like I said, is ready to work. So if I had funding tomorrow, uh, it could be the cameras could roll in 6 weeks. And then within a few months, the film would be done. And then it would go into editing. And it would be about a year between pre-production, which part of it seems to be done, a good part of it, then rolling the cameras, then editing and marketing and, discussing things with distributors and major network that I want to do. So it's about a year from now, I think.
Okay, Karen, what's the best way for people who are listening to help out?
They can call me at 908-278-3756. They can go to missysvoice.com or KarenGoeller.com. My phone number is on both of the websites. Or they can email me, Karen at KarenGoeller.com.
That's spelled Goeller. All right, very good.
Exactly.
All right, so if you've if you just want to, looking at your taxes and say, something, I've got a couple $1 million here. I want to invest in a movie that actually makes a difference, and that is Missy's Voice. When the film actually is released, what message do you hope Missy's Voice will leave with parents and children who see it?
I hope they walk out of the theater happy and with the feeling that they really do need to be kind to each other. And just all those other life lessons. I just really hope that throughout their life, like over the next week, month, and years, they actually remember what they saw in the movie and really, really follow through with following their passions, making time for family. I mean, it's just, there are so many life lessons in this film. And of course, being kind. That's the most important thing.
I was go with the golden rule as far as do unto others as you would want them to do to you.
Yeah,
I had faced bullying
exactly.
at times in my career and in my high school days and such, but it never got to a point where, you know, we have to worry about guns or suicide or anything like that. Praise the Lord for that. Once again, that suicide prevention hotline number is 988, open 24 hours a day. Karen, give us your phone number one more time, okay?
Sure, it's 908-278-3756.
And it's Karen at KarenGoeller.com, right?
Yes,
Very good.
and Missy'sVoice.com.
Missy'sVoice.com. So anyone who wants to help this lovely lady out and help get this on a mission, the next step is some funding. So let's see what we can do there. Any final thoughts, Karen, you'd like to leave with our listeners that you'd like to let them know about you, gymnastics, cancer, or Missy's Voice?
Well, I do plan on putting that 988, a note on the film, either before the credits or at some point during the film. I do plan on sharing that. And the budget is not in the millions.
Oh, okay, very good. So
it's less than that.
Okay, awesome. Very good. Very good.
Yeah, we do have some funds, but just not enough yet.
Awesome. Very good. Well, we've been speaking with Karen Goeller on the subject of Missy's Voice. We've also been talking about gymnastics. We talked about cancer. Missy's Voice is a wonderful screenplay that is in the process of going to movie, and it's all about surviving the struggle that a lot of kids face nowadays, and even adults face, bullying. It's something that I want you to think about. Are you the bully or are you being bullied? So keep that in mind. Karen, it's been a delight to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Hi, this is Rick Anthony, thanking you again for listening to this episode of Someone You Should Know. Now, if you're an aspiring musician or an established musician that's looking for a little exposure, I invite you to drop us a line at someoneyoushouldknowpodcast@gmail.com. That's someoneyoushouldknowpodcast@gmail.com. Also, I invite you to tell a friend about the Someone You Should Know podcast. I thank you for tuning in this time, and I invite you to check us out next time on the Someone You Should Know podcast, because you never know who's going to show up. Until next time, remember, God loves you, and so do I.